Four, three, two, one. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another exciting edition of Reality's Edge, the Doc and Buddy Show. Really glad that you're here tonight because this is the show where we explore the science of UFOs, the mysteries of the paranormal, and everything in between. So anything goes here. We appreciate you showing up to watch and listen, and we're going to dive into some really exciting topics tonight that I think you're really going to enjoy. So how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm really kind of stunned by the profoundness of, our research perpetually. As we dive deeper into this stuff, we're not historians, we're researchers. So we're, actively investigating, talking to experiencers. You have an amazing video that you just put up. I think it's a very important and historic interview. And in some of our research, we just finding incredible stuff. And I have been given a bunch of documents, CIA documents, declassified documents, top secret documents that, declassified top secret documents that indicate clearly that the government and numerous branches of the government not only believe in the powers of psi, not just ESP, psychokinesis, and other abilities, but that they really fear these abilities. And this has been a consistent message for a long time, for over 40 years in the documentation.
Very scary, very scary. Before we get into that, let me just say about the video you mentioned that I just posted today on the 27th of January. 2019. That's the first time that this video that information's ever been made public. This, just very briefly, this was a group of UFO witnesses in Wales, and Colin Andrews helped arrange a meeting for us with this group and someone who's a researcher out there, whose name I can't remember at the moment. It had to do with studying all sorts of UFO phenomena out in Wales. And one of the witnesses there, who I just uploaded the video today, was Ken, the policeman, who told us that fascinating story, former RAF serviceman too, in the Royal Air Force, of a big UFO that came over their town one night, flashing, pulsing, slowly coming down onto the golf course.
Wow. Someone
set up a telescope, and he said it was really bright with the naked eye of the telescope. It was blinding, his flashes. And they said, "Oh, you're a policeman, you can deal with it." Well, he said, "Luckily I wasn't on duty yet." But his shift started an hour later. He was happy to leave. Coming back the next morning from the shift at 6 a.m., he sees at least 8-foot-tall robot-like spaceman with its back to the wall of an agricultural college.
What?
In a suit, tallest thing he ever saw. And again, he was off duty because he had just, the night shift ended. And anyway, that's the story. He goes home and tells his wife, and she says, "You didn't see anything." That was the same time period where the Joyce Bowles episode happened with another man in the car, Pratt, near Winchester, where they're on the road near Winchester, UK. This happened near Bristol. And have you heard of this story? Their car it gets pushed off the road.
Yes, I have heard of this one.
Yes, and a very blonde-looking, strange sort of man walks up to the window and starts talking to them and tells them all these things that are about to happen and why they're here to protect us from environmental degradation, and mentions patterns in the wheat that will be showing up soon. And then they have control of the car again, and he's gone. And so anyway, it was around that same time period, and that's what Ken the policeman video is about. And I just say I've never publicized before, but I just felt, for some reason today, I felt today was the day. So that's it.
It's an amazing interview, and it's amazing for a bunch of reasons, and it made me think of a whole bunch of different things. Like in that time period, there was quite a few cases of giant robots, giant big things that didn't have necks even. The Voronezh case, the Umo case, of all those cases in Spain where they had that symbol. There was a robot that had the symbol on his belt that looked, it was a 9-foot Umo robot. So endlessly fascinating, endlessly fascinating.
And they come in groups, buddy. These sightings tend to come in groups. Even around the world, people see similar sorts of things. You just really wonder, like, what is going on here?
They're waves. It's like an educational wave. The whole thing is an educational
robots. The robots.
And you know what? They seem to be presenting themselves in a way that is technologically within our conception, just at the edge of our conception, you know, because if they presented us with something too wild, too strange, it would be too much for us. But it's real enough, just barely, you know, and throughout history, it's been that way. They've always represented near future technology. And
Near future. We've talked about this many times in the show. And this is, I have to be honest, I think about this question almost every day about why it's always just near future. We'll get into it another time, but it's a great question is why are the UFOs always just a little ahead in appearance and so forth of our streamlined cars in the 50s? And
it shouldn't be a surprise, though. You know, I know it's not the it's not the purpose of this episode, but it seems to me. Oh, I lost you there for a second. You got me, Doc? I'm going to shut down.
We've got him back. He's back.
The whole thing, just everything.
Okay, so, buddy, I want to say one thing. At the end of this little video, it's going to get into the topic you're about to lead us through, the documents. You can hear Colin Andrews talking to Ken and saying, you know, Ken, sometimes when you encounter these phenomena, it can affect you in ways deep in your psyche that you didn't even realize at the time, and it can last for quite a while. And that's where it cuts off. But there is a connection back to all these psychic phenomena, strange experiences. I guess some people call it high strangeness. It's not a term I've ever been particularly fond of, but that's what some people call it, NIDS, and so forth. So what you posted a video yourself earlier today, which I just finished watching about an hour ago, and you have a treasure trove. I can only say a treasure trove of documents from the CIA, the NSA. These are public domain documents now, I would imagine. They are in the public domain. They are declassified recently, I mean, relatively recently, like in the past 10 years. Now, I have to say, buddy, I was aware that the CIA had a reading room that they made available to the public with. Over the years, they've been releasing, I think it was partly from the work of Russell Targ and others to get them to release these documents, right?
Yes, correct.
I believe that was true. And so they released remote viewing documents. They released some of the top UFO photos, which they say that they couldn't even make sense of. And we don't know quite what to make when they say something. And now you've got a chunk of these. And I have never seen these before. And I have to admit, maybe I'm a bit naive. I just assumed that all of it was already out. I mean, maybe I just assumed other people would have found the treasure troves by now. But now you have these documents that show that the U.S. government was concerned of the weaponized uses of ESP. I'm actually kind of shocked. I've never heard this before, beyond just a very cursory discussion. But you've had these very detailed documents. Do you want to show us what some of these are?
Sure. And just really quickly, briefly, just like the UFO story when they told us they stopped having interest in this, and then we found out they've continued the entire time. They haven't stopped for a second. The same thing is true with ESP. They haven't stopped for a second. They've been highly interested in international programs, specific people. They've created all sorts of directives to handle the situation. They state empirically in the documents that it's been proven correct. This is real. There's a document to one of the directors, I think it's the director of the NSA. It's a briefing that says that ESP is real. This is some pretty hardcore stuff, and the implications of this are, you know, fairly staggering.
Yeah, because as I was saying to you earlier today when we were talking about this, I mean, I believe it was Robert Gates who came on the Ted Koppel show in 1995 and said it never worked. It was just, we tested it, but there wasn't really any evidence everything was really successful. And we knew that wasn't true for those of us who are remote viewers who've been involved with this, because we've met Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff, and we've talked to these folks and so many others, the viewers at the IRVA conferences, right? The Lynn Buchanans and Paul Smiths and Ingo, even some of us. And we know they kept getting asked again. And as Lynn said, they kept asking us to do more sessions. You know what this is like, buddy. Mm-hmm. More and more. All the alphabet agencies, all of them kept asking. So Lynn would always say, if it didn't work, how come they kept tasking us with more and more sessions? All of the major alphabet soup agencies. So now we find out that we have documentation to prove exactly what Lynn was telling us, right?
Not only that, but it goes deeper and further than we suspected. It's not just remote viewing. It's not just seeing distant places and times. We're talking about psychokinesis. And then now we're getting into some very, very slippery slopes here for a bunch of different reasons and a bunch of questions we don't have all the answers to and a bunch of ethical questions. There have been psychokinesis experiments that go to, how plants react to the mind, how plants react to death. Can plants be made sick? This is pretty scary stuff. And I don't think we can underestimate the scary potential of this stuff. Let me just bring up a couple of documents, if you don't mind. Hopefully my share screen function here will work, and I can dive into a couple of these documents. Here we go. Bingo. All right, let's dive into just one of these warnings. How about ESP threats? This one right down here. And there's quite a few of these threat assessments. Okay, this one was for the NSA director. Is that what this one was for? Oh, no, this was from the NSA director. He wrote, ESP research has its dangers. 1, the personality of the psychic often becomes unbalanced. He is difficult. Number 2, the telekinetic phenomena associated with ESP can be destructive of equipment, especially electronic equipment. We know that very well. Stuff breaks around all the time. Some of these get very, very difficult to read. I think this one is about if they're clairvoyant, you can't keep them out of unwanted areas. So they also state like ESP can lead into other things like, Satanism and the occult. And okay, so that's just one of these supposedly dangerous aspects of being psychic. Okay, so that was one threat. Let me go to this other threat one over here.
You're talking about a real range of psychic functions and abilities, or PK, and
they go into some real specifics in some of these documents that are pretty, some of these are 80-page reports too, so we can't necessarily go through all of them, but it's stunning. And it'd be a pleasure to send any of this to anybody who would like to get it. This should be everyone's right to read this stuff. This was an NSA ESP threat assessment. Okay. Something about omitting some of the important ESP papers here. Okay, let me skip this if you guys don't mind. Approved for release. Cryptological aspects of ESP, declassified, exempt from blah, blah, blah. All right, this is the ComSec threat, aspects of extrasensory perception and telekinesis. Okay, let's try and scroll here so we can read this.
ComSec is, do you know what ComSec is?
No, would you please fill us all in?
Communication security.
And that is of what branch? That's the Department of Defense, ComSec?
It's a generalized term for military security. You know, you don't want your adversaries being able to listen into your CB radio.
Sure. Communication security. So they talk about ESP concerns between, let's go into some of these things. Talked about evidence for the phenomena. They talk a little bit about Uri Geller for a second. Yeah, the ComSec threat. Although at present, this is scary actually. Although at present, only very few persons are measurably gifted with ESP, the threat implications to ComSec are profound. This is true because studies of primitive people indicate that general ESP ability level within a society does fluctuate in accordance with the emphasis placed on the subject by the society. That's interesting. So if the society believes in that person more, they have more ability, have what they found in something? That's fascinating.
General ability. It's general ability. That's the sheep goat thing that you were talking to Russell Targ about the other day.
Yes. Our present society is quite interested in this subject, and many ESP study and development groups have formed throughout the United States. The anticipated growth of ESP utilization not only threatens the security of the United States and friendly nations' communications, but the whole security structure, which relies so heavily on the ability to compartment and protect need to know. This blows that away. Well, we've always known that about remote viewing. A person with high enough developed ESP capabilities can disregard need to know, and few would probably be the wiser until, oops, I lost myself there somewhere.
Wiser, it's on the bottom,
Wiser until it was too late. The psychic would probably not concern himself with guessing most cryptographic keys, but would attack the plain text directly, either in the mind of the communicators or the originators. Oh, interesting. That's a good angle. Thanks for the suggestion. Or,
wow.
Or in the plain text printed page. Yeah, that's easier.
I didn't even know that was possible. Okay. Now.
Yeah. They're talking about dice. Uri Geller's performance with dice seemed to be more of a threat to small cryptographic materials, such as nuclear command and control authenticators, just small things like nuclear
pretty small
control indicators. But with the advent of increased telekinetic ability, direct and subtle attacks against computers and computerized ciphers becomes a troublesome eventuality. With their high-level stress factor, command and control centers become particularly vulnerable to such attacks. You know why? Because they're full of such chaos and the entropy level is very high. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating.
Buddy, what is the date of what is the original date of this document?
I think, let me find out. Here it says 2011. Let me go to the very,
that's
the release date. Yeah. Proof release. Let me go to the very end. This is a big sucker too. I mean, it probably says at the very first page and then at the very last at the end. Okay, I'm at the very end. Let me just skip up here. Summary. Wow, let me just read that conclusion for a second since we're there. That looked a little scary, actually.
Yeah, what did I see?
The summary. Uncareful use of either offensive or defensive psychic power is exceedingly dangerous. The fanatical Hitler experience, where a society of criminal leadership thrust open an occult horror chamber which cost over 50 million dead, should be more than a casual reminder that opening the Pandora's box of deep human power can unlock more than beneficial effects. But the lid is lifted and will not be closed. We must proceed with caution and integrity. It is my conviction that only the whole man can successfully survive in this world. This is the last frontier. The most challenging man needs all his powers and experience to be equal to the task. He must bring all wisdom as well as his science, his emotion. This seems like such a religiously powered conclusion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is
foundation of the spirit of life. Who wrote this? What are they talking about? Spirit of life? What do they mean by that?
This is
my interpretation of the spirit of life, or Buddha's interpretation, or is this some sort of fundamental? Wow.
I have omitted some of the less important ESP papers. Dr. Murphy's challenge, if is a probability, if psychical research is probably a better survey of than I can't read it. My theoretical paper, has given a tentative okay in paragraph 1 from Dr. Russell Targ.
Wow.
Senior research physicist, Electronics and Biography Laboratory, Stanford Research Institute, and someone of the parapsychology research.
President of the, yeah.
Oh, so it's all saying Russell Targ backed all this or something. That's really weird.
Well, do we know who this is, who wrote this, or is this just a departmental?
You know what I kind of screwed up on is when, this is it. This is the top page, so I'm not certain. All I know is that it has these numbers on the top, And let's see this first page again, if there's anything else on the first page. You know, there was also in here, oh, here we go. Classified by blankety blank, exempt from blankety blank, declassify upon the originator. Let me see if there's anything else. It's a ComSec threat. It's a ComSec briefing.
Significant developments took place in 1972. Wasn't that when Pat Price and Ingo broke into the NSA facility in West Virginia?
Yeah.
I mean, psychically, they were both back in Palo Alto, but you know.
Yeah, accidentally.
Yeah,
they did.
Accidentally. They missed the target. The vacation cottage. They missed the target.
Oh, so I think it does have the name of the person. Hold on a second here. It said there, right. A crypto. Oh, they cut it out. See, there's a box underneath it. It's been blank.
It's been whited out.
Yeah, cryptological aspects of ESP. I wonder if this is one of
the redacted. Yes, because so there's parts of this we don't see. This is an amazing document. I have to say this is quite because you know, buddy, Russell always said that once they had read the cryptographic keys at the Sugar Grove facility in West Virginia, that all hell broke loose within the national security apparatus, because that was pretty damn serious. Yeah. It was a facility for listening to Soviet satellites as they went overhead, and it was, you know, you don't want anyone to know how well you can do that, or they're going to change how their satellites work. So this was a really serious event, and I imagine that this paper, since they mentioned 1972, was a reaction to that event, wouldn't you?
I would think this is definitely post all that. It talks about certain events that makes me think it's early. This might be early 80s. So right. Retrospect of that stuff, which makes sense post the beginning of SRI and all that stuff. And it sounds like where this is it's interesting on so many levels. It has an assessment. If you look here at one of the syllabuses inside of it, it talks about the potential threat of psychokinesis to ComSec. So I can go to page 81 and find out what those are. It says defense against ESP.
We saw a little bit of that. I caught the word boredom. It's always a good defense against anything is boredom, right?
Right.
Just bore them so they just get tired of doing RV, right? We want to go home, watch TV.
You know, just for fun, before we leave this document, this has so much great stuff in it, but I think there's other ones to check out as well, too, for a bunch of different reasons. Let me go to 81 really quick, if I can find it.
You know, again, just as you're scrolling through, this is a document. Is technically available to anyone? Not just you.
I believe it is. I believe it is.
Sanitized copy approved for release. So, oh, wait a minute. There we got some names. Dr. Hans Bender. Sure, he was from Freiburg in Germany. Interesting. Are these recognized experts in the field, or people that contributed to the research? For
the research in that section. Now they're going into early Soviet research here, Moscow, bunch of names, dates, places, people, Leningrad, the different groups involved, some of their theories.
There's a redacted section.
Oh, there's a few places where a lot of names were taken out.
I can see that.
Development.
No names, yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Electronic computers. Control of entire populations. Jeez, wow. Okay.
This is interesting. A successful telepathy transmission of 12 out of 25 pictures from Moscow to Novosibirsk. Wow, that was nice. A successful telepathy experiment in which the hypnotized subject was made to fall asleep or awaken in 4 out of 5 tries.
Now, that is mentioned by our friend Russell Targ in his book, The Reality of ESP. I think the Russian physicist in charge of that, Vasilev, I believe his name was. Russell described it. I just read it yesterday, that the idea was to remotely make subjects fall asleep or wake up. They had them in these kind of electromagnetically sealed tubes, and they would have them press a bulb to push air in and out, right? And when they stopped doing that, they know they'd fallen asleep. And in the book, Russell says they could repeat this within a minute. The subject would fall asleep or wake up again, and based on the intent of the sender. in a totally different building or far away.
That's so funny. It reminds me of something that happened this past summer. I was on the phone with Super Sleuth, who's my good buddy, and have a bunch of relatives over at the house, and they're all loud. You know, they're all being loud, loud, loud. And they come over, and it's still daytime. It's not night yet. And they all go into the living room, and I tell Super Sleuth, gosh, I wish they would just go to sleep. I just got so much stuff to do. I just wish they'd go to sleep. And she's like, you know, don't wish them, you know, About 10 minutes later, I open the door, and all four of them are asleep, and it's during the day. This isn't like it's night yet. 4 of them are asleep, and I caught it all on video. And I always thought to myself that it was just really odd that they all 4 fell asleep. Yeah, they were tired. It was an hour-and-a-half drive, but just a little weird. Anyway, this stuff is bizarre. And those sleep experiments and affecting another human's thought or physical body is, to me, a very, very unethical thing to do. Just my, you know, unless it's healing.